Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be breaking down 7.16. So I have already posted full breakdown videos for first 5 quests of this initial Act 7 chapter, where we discussed every single path in each quest as well as the best counters for them and the bosses, and accented some of the cheese methods or, well, in general viable options or strategies. And now we're going to do the same for final quest. If you haven't caught the previous videos, obviously I do recommend going back and taking a look at them. However, if this quest for some reason is the one that's giving you problems, then still a huge thank you to watching this video, because you guys have been absolutely amazing. The channel is about to hit 32,000 subscribers. As a reminder, if you are new to the channel, every 1,000 subscribers I go back into Abyss with a full-on rank 3 6-star team. So we are very close to hitting that target and me having to jump back in Abyss, which I'm actually kind of looking forward to this time. Let's start on the left side with the first path. Here's Particle Protector, Micro Reflect, Size Matters, and then Bulk Up. Now this path is effectively your variant 2. Extra large champions ignore pretty much all of the nodes on here, period. Large champions can throw their special attacks and heavy attacks. Medium champions, it's heavy attacks that cannot be glanced, and you really don't want to go lower than that. Other than that, you definitely can still use Quake, especially with bulk up. If you're not running ouchie masteries, then Quake will actually double her damage output or triple it, and that's going to be very pleasant time using Quake. But again, just bring in your warlocks, bring in your Call Obsidians or Sasquatches or whoever you have at large or extra large level ranked up, and you're gonna be just fine. The fights are not all that intimidating on the lane. And now, quite possibly one of my favorite lanes in the entire chapter, we have Destructive Feedback, which is a bit of a pain, but then we have Impatience. Whenever a Cosmic Attacker fails to trigger a buff, you gain a Fury buff, and that just works so incredibly well with OG Tor. Obviously, it does still help out many of the older Cosmic Champions as well, such as Captain Marvel, such as Miss Marvel, Drax, and a bunch of others. But overall, aside from Small Arms, which basically just ensures that you cannot throw multiples of heavy attacks in a row, you can use pretty much any champions you want here. It's not a big deal. As I mentioned, OG Tor is an absolute dynamite. Cosmic Wrath obviously still even more encourages you in using Cosmic Champions, and some of the matchups here as well, like Killmonger and Warlock, and ideally you obviously want to armor break those defenders. So for me personally, obviously OG Tor was my go-to option, but still with Cosmic Wrath and Node Hyperion is going to be amazing, because you can armor break the Killmonger, you can armor break Warlock, and you can drop those big level 2s with that Cosmic Wrath. Not to mention that you can earn 2 missions in the first fight, 3rd mission in the next fight, and Avengers there as well. So that would work out pretty much perfectly. And yeah, a ton of great options, and very simple, kind of like straightforward path. Moving on, we have Footloose, Transducer, Stun Vulnerability, and Aggressive. And as I always like to say, where is Footloose must be slow, and it's not necessarily a must, but it's definitely by far the best and easiest way how to counter Footloose. So using any slow champion, especially the champions that do quite frequently rely on stunning the opponent and, let's say, landing a big heavy attack in case of She-Hulk or Red Guardian or whoever you want to use, you're gonna have absolutely fantastic time. Additionally, Quake can do a ton of damage on this lane and ignore Footloose, but typically, yeah, you have your She-Hulks, you have your Spider-Gwens, you have your Red Guardians, you have your Sorcerer Supremes, and a ton of other slow champions now in the game. Or you can just be patient. Footloose is annoying, but you can play around Footloose with pretty much any champion that doesn't have like a lot of clock watching and time sensitive mechanics. And then you just want to rely on basically hitting them while they're stunned, and you're going to do just fine. Fairly straightforward lane. And I think this is overall the most favorite lane, because clapback is such a cheesable thing, and especially there's absolutely nothing limiting you from using any champions. There are no poisons, no shocks, no nothing like that. So best clapback cheeses have always been Human Torch and Sunspot. Human Torch because every time you incinerate the opponent, the node tries to incinerate you back and you gain a ton of smolders, so Human Torch is going to do a crap load of damage. And he will also benefit from the Science node, which I'm going to discuss in a second. And then, obviously, we also have Sunspot, who effectively will never lose his solar charges, so he can put up some insanely ridiculous numbers. I have already uploaded a video here with Abomination Cheese, because Abomination here gains a ton of Fury buffs thanks to Eat Crow, which says Science attackers gain immunity to Nullify. Whenever a Nullify or Poison fails to apply to the attacker due to an immunity, they gain a Fury passive, increasing attack by 80%. And thanks to Clapback, Abomination places a lot of poisons on opponent. They try to apply back on Abomination, they fail, you gain a ton of Furies, so OG Abomination is crazy here. Other than that, this node in itself basically kind of enables you to use pretty much any Science champion, well, most of the Science champions, because you can ignore Buffet node, you don't have to contend with that, and you can just go on your happy-go-lucky ways. Opponent's not going to nullify anything from you. If the Buffet tries to trigger, you're going to gain a Fury buff, you can hit harder. Only noteworthy really fight here is like Dr. Doom, and here I encourage you to remember that if you think slow the Petrify and slow the opponent, he will not gain his Aura of Hazorath, and that makes the fight significantly easier. So for me personally, when I happen to bring in Mr. Fantastic for synergy, I just placed a pre-fight ability on Dr. Doom, and then I had absolutely no issue dealing with him when I redid the path with Abomination. But yeah, it's very fun, very cheesable lane altogether, especially like, as I mentioned before, Human Torch or Abomination. Now we're going to move on to the next lane, which is Recharge, Power Shield, and Bubble Shield, and Perforate. And this is another cheesy lane. You can pretty much use any champion you want, and that's kind of like a theme of Act 7. If Act 7 has themes, I would definitely go with, for the first time ever, they have managed to turn annoying nodes into enjoyable nodes, such as Aspect of War and stuff like that. They were genuinely fun fights with very crazy nodes. And the second thing is that it feels more open, where you can use many more champions that you could ever before. Anyways, that being said, any champions who can gain extra power gain obviously will be quicker to abuse these power shield mechanics, or champions who have very, very crazy special attacks. Obviously, you can also benefit from your special attacks being unblockable, thus not being afraid to shoot them in opponent's block. And yeah, I quite literally just brought in like a ragtag team of Hulkbuster and like a bunch of different champions. A quick side note for Power Shield is that damage over time effects still work, so you could potentially be able to abuse several damage over time champions like Archangel, Nick Fury, because you can still shoot off your special attacks, but your damage over time effects will still put in the work meanwhile and potentially let you finish out the fights quicker. But you can use pretty much everyone, and the opponents aren't the trickiest. And the last lane here is Biohazard, Acclimation, Coolant Leak, and Combo Lock. Now, Biohazard basically means that you need to use Bleed Immune champions. But there is a way around it in this case, where every 5 hits on their combo meter, mutant attackers purify all Bleed, Incinerate, and Cold Snap debuffs currently on them. Any debuffs purified this way provide an attacker with 10% of a bar of power. For most part, you can pretty much use any mutant champion here. Ideally, you obviously want them to be bleed immune or almost bleed immune, such as a Red. But yeah, this node, if you are aggressive enough, lets you ignore Biohazard. My personal approach, obviously, surprise, surprise, was bring in Colossus and wreck stuff up. Coolant Leak, make sure you don't bring in robots, so no Warlock, for instance, here. But yeah, the opponents aren't too bad. Bring in a bleed immune mutant, ideally, or any mutant team. You should be quite a-okay. Right, now let's take a look at the bosses. Let's start with this Ice Phoenix. Cold Fusion, it's not too game-changing. They have a chance to gain some extra power, big deal. Power Axis 1 will let you get to your special ones quicker. And then you have Power Build-Up and Power Overflow, which can let you well, opponents will gain a bunch of provinces. Keep in mind that these guys don't have their level 3s active, so you don't have to be afraid of pushing them to level 3. Only know that you need to play around here is Encroaching Stun. The way you're going to go about it is you can either completely ignore the node with Nick Fury, largely ignore it with Emma Frost, ignore it with Apocalypse if you time your strikes well, or just try your best to play around it, because the only other condition here is you do not want that Cold Snap debuff on you at the start of the fight. So you want to either be able to shrug it off with Ghost or Aegon or, I don't know, Ronin or whoever else can shrug off debuffs, or you want to have Cold Snap immunity or partial Cold Snap immunity. So let's say Guardian, so let's say Sasquatch, Warlock, so on and so forth. Plenty of great options. Only real big thing to keep in mind is the Cold Snap immunity. The Encroaching Stun is an annoying node. You can play around it, because the rest of the fight isn't overly complicated. The troubles come when you have Encroaching Stun and opponents have billions of power gain mechanics, so on and so forth. If it's in a very simple matchup, it's not that bad. Using champions who have relatively long special attacks can also be helpful because it makes it easier to time around it. Now we have this Scarlet Spider, which is basically a Wade from Spider-Gwen and special attacks and debuffs from Scarlet Witch. The nodes here are not much. Special Chaos Inversion is the main thing, but Scarlet Witch special attack animations are relatively simple, so you should be able to play around them quite well, especially if you're used to fighting Emma Frost. You can obviously use like Mr. Professor X or Emma Frost with Mysterious Energy, and you should be immune to that. Back Blast is the thing that you kind of want to worry about if you're going to use high damage output champions, or you have to bring in incinerating options. My personal favorite for this fight was Human Torch. Then we have obviously we can use Quake. You can bring in any medium damage output champion, to be honest. Or you can rely on Incinerate Immune champions, and you should be doing just about fantastic job as well. Keep in mind, there is a chance you will get poisoned by Scarlet Witch's signature ability. But also keep in mind, if you're using Mystic champions, and if you let her get to level 2, you will have buffs you can nullify and feed your Mystic champion abilities too, so you can potentially even bring in like Dr. Doom or something of the sort. But yeah, my personal options here was Human Torch and Quake, but there are definitely other options to choose from as well. The main thing is you kind of need to be able to evade those reverse special attacks, and then you can have your pick at what champion you want to use. And then we have this Grenperian, which initially was quite annoying, but now we have more and more cheese videos on it. The most common option for Grenperian, I would say, is using Ronin and just demolishing and eternally stun locking and ignoring the selected time stream. Another champion that can completely ignore this node selected time stream would be Colossus, who can just out damage it once you ramp him up. But selected time stream is annoying, where effectively you want to apply Incinerate or Shock to prevent the boss from healing back up to full every 20 seconds. Worst comes to worst, you can enter the fight, hit her for 19 seconds, exit, and bring your next team member. Additionally to all of that, abilities such as Archangel's Neurotoxin, Warlock with his Infection, and Mysterio with his passive heal block also work perfectly here, because they do not get shrugged off by selected time stream. Or, yeah, there have been cheeses posted by, I believe, Rogue, Gwenpool, probably Black Widow Clairvoyant is a viable option as well. Again, main thing is, remember, she cannot activate level 3, and you can be super aggressive in this fight. And I'm sure you can find a way through it with one of the options that I mentioned, or something that I didn't. But that's pretty much it for breaking down all of the 7.1. And yeah, I hope these videos have been helpful to you. If they have, then definitely hit that like button, forward it to your friends, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya!